So, my name is Thomas Yount, and I'm here to talk today about how serious games on climate change have the capacity to be a tool for modeling scenarios. I'm the founder of the game company called Clean Earth Future, and I'm the creator of the board game Climate Cooldown. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the idea behind Climate Cooldown, give an introduction to the game itself, some example cases of scenarios within the game, examples of the curriculum that I've developed, and survey data before going to some conclusions. So something I want to consider here is what are some of the ways that we can make the narratives and storylines of scenarios from frameworks like the SSPs more accessible to people of all ages and backgrounds? Also, how can we make them more hands-on, interactive, social, and even fun to learn about? This kind of relates to some of the questions I was asking when I first started creating Climate Cooldown, which was, does a game exist where players model working together to save the planet from the climate crisis? One where the collective decisions that we make in the game will end up shaping the different scenarios and outcomes for the future of the planet. I looked, I couldn't find anything. And so at the time, around 2020, I jumped in. I had to start creating something like this. And I wanted one where we could actually play out scenarios that were both desirable and undesirable to use this as a teaching tool and share what potential solutions we could have to these issues. So let's jump into a little bit more about the game itself, some design choices. I really wanted to create a game where we're modeling the dynamics and relationships of Earth and human systems on the planet, where we shape the changes in the human systems through our actions in the game. I wanted a game where we all need to divest from unsustainable power by transitioning to sustainable power sources. See here, I call it geothermal. One where all regions experience anthropogenic and natural disasters relating to climate change. One where we can invest in numerous critical climate solutions to address these disasters and reduce our impacts on Earth. And one where we address food waste through resource management, resource inequalities through diplomacy, and restore and protect the land and ocean. So more about the idea of the game. The game is designed so that players are put in a challenging situation, one where they can quickly see what it's like when the Earth systems and human systems aren't working together. Then, when they play the game again, it can motivate them to find out what went wrong with the scenario that they were organizing around and strategize for a better outcome. Although the science isn't perfect, what we're trying to do here is give them an opportunity to learn from the results of their actions, to recognize the systems and how they can work together, and also what trade-offs and side effects there might be along the process. When they're also working together in the future, the hope is that they'll be able to recognize the decisions that they need to make to get the outcomes for the world that they want. Hopefully a better future, one that they can actually imagine. So let's go over some example cases for scenarios. First example case was one in a 9th grade high school biology classroom. And the teacher and I saw a group of students playing the game, and they were just really quickly heating up the planet. Global average temperature was going up real quick. And one student in the group was playing one of the regions of the global north, and they were super power hungry. And they just told the group all they wanted to do was accumulate resources, because they could get whatever they want. They have it their way. The rest of the group really disagreed with this strategy, but they didn't buck back too hard. Either way, the outcome was a loss. Everyone lost collectively. So, the student was shocked with the outcome. They actually believed that it would work. And the next time they played the game, the following day, this same group member asked the group, should we try a different strategy? And the group was like, oh God, thank God. Okay, yes, let's definitely discuss this. Let's actually do something different. By listening and working together to discuss different strategies, they actually ended up winning the game. They were ecstatic and shared the outcome, this new outcome with the classroom. Another example case here is with another group of students. I noticed that they were quickly learning how to play the game faster than most other students. In they just jumped right in practically. And then not only that, but they're discussing elements of the cards, topics of the game, which is really great to see. However, they quickly lost the game. I was really shocked. And I wasn't sure why at first, but they jumped right back in, reset the game, started playing again. And, they got closer, but they still lost. So they came to me and they're like, all right, what's the deal? Why did we lose? Why do we keep losing? And so I shared a few things that I noticed. I said, for one, you really didn't invest in diplomacy much at all, or just redistribute your resources between regions, which caused food waste, increased your emissions. Moreover, while you were playing, I didn't see any of you discussing with each other what your needs were, what your strategies were to win collectively. And if you did, you may have been able to prevent that food waste, take more actions with your limited resources at hand, and also be more efficient with your strategy and the ways that you manage your resources as a group, not just independently. So just to kind of recap on some of these concepts, I've been wondering what kind of scenarios would I want to talk about with students while they're playing this game? What kind of things can be highlights and themes? Some that I've noticed and observed. Case in point, first one was, you have power mockers, people who are very much enthused, over-relying on power accumulation as a strategy. You also have the power shy, which is really interesting. Those who want to avoid a just transition because they just don't want to deal in energy whatsoever. They're just focusing on healing the land and ocean, planet. It's really interesting. You also have food wasters, people who just don't really care about sharing. They kind of just want to hang on to their resources to the bitter end unless they really have to spend them. You have unilateralists who just do what they want. That was kind of a little more of the case of the second example, where you have everyone kind of working their own interests, but not in partnerships with each other for common goals. And you have the multilateralists who exercise joint strategy and diplomacy quite well. And that tends to be the most effective storyline where the different regions of the board, the players start actually exercising discussion. So a question that comes up often is, should the game be cooperative or competitive? Well, I designed it to be cooperative. However, there is a competitive mode. I don't encourage it because it makes it far more challenging. And you're incentivized in that mode to accumulate more resources, to have more purchasing power, versus to develop diplomacy, which is an investment in itself, to then only give away more. Why would you do that? So it's really interesting that it puts them in a conundrum, because no one actually is a winner unless everyone wins first. So it kind of brings into question, how does the game narrate and get us into storytelling modes? Well, quite quickly, when we start role-playing as different regions of the globe, when we have unequal resource distribution from the get-go, that starts discussion, as well as when you play with multiple players per region. You have to discuss with each other how you're going to employ strategies before you even talk to the rest of the group. So next question is, how can climate cool down and supporting comprehensive climate curriculum take students from exploring the possible future pathways with regards to socioeconomic pathways to fostering individual pathways, both academic and vocational in nature, so that they can develop active hope and agency in the future? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the curriculum itself that I've developed over the last year and a half. Just to jump off, once the game was created, talking to school districts, teachers, it was obvious that students are going to get exposed to a lot of information here. And so disasters, shocks, cool downs, which are climate solutions, power sources, all of these things. But what other information is backing this, right? So we decided to create a module online that's freely available, where students can explore the climate solutions, disaster, sources of power. Let's just imagine we're going to scroll up and then click on microgrid, for example. You got a page on microgrids, you have the artwork in a larger format, you have a definition, you have some gameplay, metadata, description. Importantly, prospective academic degrees relating to this topic, as well as careers. Then we have elementary, middle school, high school, and advanced prompts, at least 2 per topic. And then we have relevant sustainable development goals for each of these topics as well. After completing this, talking to teachers are like, well, what about the teacher-facing side? It's like, okay, yeah, that's next. So I went and basically revamped everything, added in next generation science standards for each of these topics, proficient level answers for all the 500 some card prompt, explanations for how the sustainable development goals work for each of these topics, and lastly, suggested resources for all of them as well, so that teachers and students have access to more. So now, just looking for briefly, pathways such as reforestation. These are topics that don't have to just be climate solutions. You also have disasters like bycatch, sources of power like solar, petroleum. Students have focused on all sorts of different things. But what we're encouraging through the curriculum is to look at any one of these and discover what possible degrees, careers, volunteering opportunities, service corps programs, etc. are possible. Not just the ones we provided, but they can present on this, and it can give them an encouraging way to look towards the future, to be able to find their own way to get involved. So, really exciting, recently I was able to get the chance to do a survey, pre-post game survey, 3 biology classes, about 60 students over the course of 2 days, and then what we found was really great. So we found that anxiety, sadness, anger, and confusion have decreased after having played the game. And anxiety being the top rated, over 60% of the students stated that they were anxious about the climate crisis. That actually dropped, and hope became the highest indicator for emotion development. It increased by nearly 25%, and as well as motivation going from 15% to 40%. So that was something that I was really, really looking forward to getting some data on. And this is the first time I was able to actually capture this, but it was really exciting to see. Also, other things that we measured were the power one feels to make a difference. That increased. One's knowledge and confidence in diplomacy as a solution to climate change drastically increased. Confidence and knowledge of sustainable and renewable sources of energy increased. And knowledge of, generally speaking, climate solutions also increased. So that was really exciting to see. And some concluding thoughts that I have here are, in order for students or even the layperson to grasp the intricacies of scenarios, serious board games focus on climate change. They have the capacity to model the dynamics of Earth and systems through gameplay in an accessible and even fun manner. This may also be a way that we can quickly springboard discussion to get people up to speed without the initial necessity of overwhelming deep dives into data analysis, stochastic climate modeling, all that from the get-go. So we can scaffold things with games. Next, serious board games like Climate Cool Down offer a way to model scenarios with varied factors and constraints, such as our changing impact on the planet, our resource management, and for diplomacy, our limited time to divest from fossil fuels, and the tragedy of the commons. Although the data models from this may have been simplified, with the need to develop game mechanics and create a model like this, the sacrifice of precision really counterbalanced by the achievement of essential concepts that can be reaching students, which create a foundation for continued learning. As students improve their knowledge base, the data from stochastic models can then be more easily processed when learning about scenarios such as those presented with the SSP RCP framework. This game also aims to orient players to achieve the ambitious IPCC goals. Although each round isn't discretely laid out as a year per se or some long time, the effect of meeting and discussing changes that need to occur after witnessing the impact we have at the end of each round gives the opportunity to review and evaluate where we stand, much like the IPCC meetings do in the real world. By modeling the dynamics of Earth human systems and identifying the most effective climate solutions that can address critical climate shocks we are facing, the next generation will be more prepared to ascertain avenues towards climate action, such as academic and career pathways. Informed by the climate issues most pertinent to their own communities, they will be given a playbook for jump-starting their futures as climate leaders. Through both interactive game-based learning and supplementary curricula, analog serious games can position us to get a better understanding of these complex systems, as well as be able to evaluate, analyze, and comprehend the stakes of the crisis we're in together. Thank you so much, and thank you for the presentation.
Sweet.